Queer times, queer times, queer times, queer times.
Queers in.
Hey, Kristen, welcome to Queer Times.
Hi, Harrison. Thanks for having me.
I have you every week.
I love it. I love to be had by you.
Yeah. Happy end of Pride Month.
End of Pride.
Yeah. In honor of the end of Pride Month, me and Kristen want to get a little personal with you.
I love it.
Yeah, and we want to kind of share our experiences of coming out, our queer experience through our lives. I don't think mine is especially special, but it's special because it's mine.
It's special because it's yours.
Yeah, and also I think the queer experiences, every single person has a different queer experience, but all of them are the same at the same time, I feel.
Ooh, say more.
I think when you go to the fundamentals of what the queer experience with, or at least what I understand it to be, it's your relation to the world, your relation to gender, your relation to other people. And I feel like that is all the same. But obviously everyone's experience is different because there's a rainbow
Correct.
of queer people.
Yeah. And so tell us about your experience.
Well, I wanted to ask you, when do you feel like you first were like, oh, I'm gay?
High school.
High school.
Yeah. I mean, I definitely, I'll tell everybody. Kindergarten, Marissa Licata, she's out there now. She's a lesbian now. I was like, I'm your bodyguard. Right? So in hindsight, I go, oh, it was kindergarten. It was Holy Angels Academy, Buffalo, New York. Me on the playground, someone being mean to Marissa, and me being like, I got you, bitch. Right? And I was like, what a butch dyke thing
Top
to
energy.
do. Big top energy, big top energy, right? And then obviously going through life as this little bowling ball that was always called a boy if my hair wasn't down to my ass. Kind of going and drove my Italian aunts crazy, drag me, pierce my ears, make sure that I knew that everyone knew I was a girl and not to get that confused. And they were very serious about that. And it didn't matter that the only reason my hair got cut was because we moved to Louisiana and it was really hot and my mom just didn't want to deal with it. My mom was like, whatever. But everybody else then started calling me a boy. And then that really upset people. And then in high school, I had feelings for who was my best friend at the time. And I was like, oh my God. But also the homophobia was strong because I was actively eating pussy and being like, oh, no. I'm not a lesbian.
That's wild.
No, I was like, oh, it's just this one person.
Yeah.
And when this one person is over, I will hop on them dicks. And I tried one dick. I don't have my gold star and I'm mad about it, but shout out to Phil, who was in fact the son of a preacher man. That's when that song comes on, I lose my mind.
The
I'm like,
only boy who
yeah,
could
exactly.
ever
Yeah.
reach me.
And it was terrible. And no, not because it was anyone's fault, but we were shit hammered. And I was like, all right, go ahead, I guess.
Might as well.
It really was. It was like one of those. And after that, went back, tried dating a boy, cute boy, whatever. From that moment on, I was like, oh, no, it's not this. It's definitely not this. And then I kind of moved away from Shreveport, went to college and lived in a dorm with all the weirdo queerdos. And this is a time when in Louisiana, you could still smoke cigarettes in one wing of the dorm. So yeah, the third floor boozman, floor west. Third floor west was the dorm. And it was all the bisexual theater people. It was just, that was everybody. And me, who was none of those things, who was just this jockey dyke who stopped going to class and started managing restaurants and just lived in the dorm. I was assumed to be a homosexual in high school. I did not admit it. So I was out to my girlfriend, obviously, and the other few queer friends that we know who were all technically in the closet, thought nobody knew, right? Who would literally hang out with our coach and shit. It was like that. It was Southern town like that. Yeah. And go to the gay bar at 16 with a fake ID.
Wild. That
we passed around. Everybody became Tracy. And
it's a very gay name.
No, yeah. Well, it was a fake ID from Barksdale Air Force Base, somebody's military ID.
Oh, word.
And every time we needed to get somebody in the bar, they just were always Tracy.
I love how I said that's a gay name. That's also my father's name.
Is it really?
Yeah.
And then so it was definitely rumors in high school. Deny. My parents asked. Deny. Move away. Come into my own and be ready to say, I didn't tell my parents officially until about 24, 25. because their reaction when I was in high school was not good. So it was definitely something that wasn't going to come up again for a while until I was most certainly on my own.
Was their reaction better then?
A little bit.
Mm.
And it's much better now.
Great.
They've grown into it. In a way, it always blew my mind because my mom had was a travel agent. And so there were like gay people around all the time, like gay men specifically. And so it really did blow my mind how they were those liberals who were like, they had gay friends, but
not
better,
in my house.
not in my family.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
Interesting.
But they've come a long way.
That's great.
Yeah. Or else they had, and then now we're Trumps. No, isn't that crazy to like watch your blue collar, liberal, democratic union family be like, that's my president? I'm like, what the fuck?
I think parents have a hard time because they plan a life for you.
Exactly.
And then that life goes out the window in their mind when you come out to them, and they don't have the understanding or worldliness to understand what your life can be as a queer person.
Well, neither did we.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I mean, I think this is all in the grand scheme of our own country's evolution. I think other countries and surely other cultures have figured this out. We know the history of two-spirited people, but I think that that is a fear for some people, was always like, it's not that I hate that you're this way. I'm just hate that the world's going to be so hard for you, right? Like I think that's real for a lot of parents, right?
Yeah.
And now it could get you physically hurt, right? We're back to that stage of things, right? So I understand why parents would have had that reaction 30 years ago. And I do think now parents are understanding, now that they've had some out gay friends and they know that they're, isn't that experience can be, they're understanding that it doesn't have to be that way. And that is progress in some way. Right?
And representation matters.
And representation
that's why.
matters. And
I think a lot of people when they talk about DEI and representation, they're just like, why do you they don't really understand the actual effect it makes when you have queer people on television, movies, and like it is that it's able to see a life that your queer children can lead.
Yes.
I mean, for me, it's like some of my earliest memories are of me being gay. You know what I mean? And I don't mean gay in the sexualness of it.
Right.
But like I was 3 years old and I watched The Wizard of Oz every day. And I was Dorothy.
Right.
I have pictures of me at that age with one of my dad's big blue t-shirts with a belt around it in a pair of my mom's red pumps because I was Dorothy. And then in retrospect, I'm like, that's the gayest thing ever.
I was very lucky to have a gay best friend. Shout out Ryan, growing up. And so all the things that would get bought for me and him, vice versa, could swapsies.
Yeah, totally.
So like he had a Knight Rider big wheel. And the Knight Rider big wheel had the brake that you could pull and then like slide. And I loved it. And he was like, man. And I was like, amazing.
You're
right?
like, this is for me now.
Like, here, you can have my strawberry shortcake bike.
Exactly.
Right? Like it became this thing where it kind of worked out because we could be each other's gender variants or whatever. You know what I mean? Like, oh, you don't want to play with that? I'll play with that.
I mean, I have a memory, maybe one of my earliest memories is we were at some sort of like Chuck E. Cheese type place. And I was probably too little to be playing with the kids that I was playing with. And we were in the ball pit. And I remember like sinking to the bottom. And I just remember this like cute, slightly older boy like reaching down and pulling me out. And in that moment, I was the damsel in distress being saved.
And were you in love?
Kinda, yeah.
Have you found any correlation to the features of that young man and your
I can't
favorite hookups?
I can't, like, that's the extent of what I remember in that moment. But then my parents were very cool about it. And I guess that's such a weird way of putting it, but it's like my parents let me be the weird kid. And I don't mean let me experience my gender. They never were like, oh, that's not for boys. Ever.
Oh, right.
When I wanted a mermaid toy, they bought me the Little Mermaid toy. When I remember going through the drive-thru with my father at McDonald's, and they're like, "Oh, do you want a Barbie or a Matchbox car?" And him turning around to me and my brother and being like, "Barbie or Matchbox car?" And I'm like, "Barbie!" And I got a Barbie, and I remember being mad because it had plastic hair and not like flowing hair.
I think that is a really nice gift.
Oh, definitely.
Do you ever talk to your parents about that?
Yes and no. Yeah.
Yeah.
Then I was in second or third grade when the school kids started being like, "Oh, you're a girl." I'm like, "What? What do you mean?"
Mhm.
You know? And that was challenging.
Yeah.
But I think my parents also recognized that I was going to experience that, and rather than asking me to change to be more comfortable in those experiences, they pushed me to be smart and intelligent and
To know you don't have to care about what they think.
yeah, to have the character to be able to handle those situations rather than changing me so I wouldn't be in those situations, which I think is truly a blessing from my parents.
I think it's definitely something that there should be more of
Mhm.
in the world, this idea that the world is not going to change
Yeah.
for our lived experience, unfortunately, particularly right now.
Mhm.
And so having the fortitude to get through a world that is like, I mean, I definitely, it was tomboy all the time,
Yeah.
right? It was just always that. And
Mhm.
I've always been this. Like, I think I remember having some pretty serious fights about having to go try on dresses,
Mm.
right? Like, I remember that being a whole thing. And if you pull up photos of me as a child in these dresses, miserable,
Dysphoria.
miserable. Yeah, just
Yeah.
really not wanting it. And then fast forward to now where there's not a chance. There will never.
Never.
No, there was like a minute in high school where I was like, whatever,
Mhm.
kind of, I feel like. And I don't know if it's just because I was skinny and hot. And like that's what skinny hot girls did.
Yeah.
You know, they just put on, I mean, skinny for me, but like not for Louisiana, maybe.
Right.
I wasn't going to be Miss Louisiana by
Yeah.
any means. I don't want to put that out there because someone will find a photo of me from high school and be like, ugh. But it was definitely as feminine as I've ever been,
Mm.
was probably my like sophomore, junior year of high school. And then my senior year, I had all that pussy. So it was like,
Yum yum. And not to belittle your experience at all or the experience of more masculine women as they grow up as children, but it's like there's even like the cutesy term of being a tomboy. I feel like feminine boys and more masculine girls have like I don't want to say easier, but
they do. And I will tell you that that is because we live in a society that applauds masculinity.
100%.
And that is something that I've had to unpack for myself in
Mhm.
just number one, my own misogyny and like how I respond to femininity. Because it's not just about having a vagina and big tits, which I have, and they're both lovely. But there is definitely, we live in a culture that sees femininity as weakness
Mm.
and masculinity is applauded. And so
Yeah.
I often say that I have male privilege because I believe I do. I believe
Mm.
in the same way that I'm like, oh, you got this job, whatever. I was also the only woman on management at most of my jobs, you know, because I was in landscaping. I owned the business. I was in restaurant management. I was a manager. I was the only one under 35 and I was the only woman.
Mm.
Right. And I was 22. And so I do wholeheartedly believe that my masculine presentation is applauded in the society. It also makes me susceptible to men who want to show me what a real man is like.
Mm.
Because there's also the rage that it induces from men who are challenged by my masculinity.
Mm.
And those are the ones most likely to want to rape a butch lesbian. And that is a very real thing that no one really talks about, and people
Mm.
don't really understand that when you go through life in this body and you trigger an incredibly a weak man, they want to then show you what a real man is, right? And so that is a level of violence that does happen way more than people think.
Right.
Because when you do present more masculine, it's a lot easier to separate you from the woman you should be protecting.
Oh yeah.
Right. And you have to be ready if you go through life in a bad built butch body, that you might have to take a punch like a man. You know, it was definitely something where going through life, I was like, when I was a landscaper, I've kind of was always up until, you know, over 40 and turning into an old lady, pretty strong and pretty ready to have to fight if I needed to, because there is a different, you know, sexual assault isn't about sex, it's about power. And so there's a different threat that comes from challenging a man's sense of his own masculinity.
I've never thought about that as in depthly as you've put that.
It's very real. It's very real, especially if you are like I am and hot enough to date really hot women, because that
They think that's supposed to be theirs.
they think that's supposed to be theirs. Very feminine presenting women, which has always been my style. I love a pretty girl. And so then, there are definitely times in my life where I've had to like scan the room and then realize someone realizes that's my girlfriend and be ready. And fortunately, humor has always been my strongest skill set.
Mm.
And I can usually, I don't want to say diffuse, but like hold my own in those situations and let those men know that in no way, shape, or form am I intimidated by who they think they are and whether or not they think that, they have power over me or, while actively allowing my girlfriend to be her own person and stand up for herself, right? Because then it's interesting because then we'd have to dive into like the whole butch femme dynamics. I used to be there were moments in my life where like I had like my fiance and I had very rigid like butch femme dynamics. And she would love it if I would tell a guy to go fuck off. Because there's a moment where, I've had men go up to my girlfriend and like, I had a grown ass man come to my own show that I was producing while my girlfriend was sitting on a bench outside and walk up and kind of like put his dick in her face because she was feminine and hot and he thought that was okay.
Ew.
Like there's been my whole life. You deal with men being mad that you challenge their idea of what masculinity is, and men being mad that you're fucking way better than they are.
I mentioned earlier that like being bullied by kids I was in elementary school, and obviously that's understandable. Kids are terrible. They don't have a fully formed brain. But what's crazy to me is like growing up, in retrospect, I look back at like there were certain adults in my life where I was like, why doesn't this person like me? Why is this person so mean to me? And then like in retrospect, I was like, oh, they fucking hated me because I was a little gay kid, a little femme boy.
Did you have any teachers who were like extra nice to you because of that?
Oh, of course, the art teacher.
Yeah. Mine was the music teacher.
Uh-huh.
R.I.P. Mrs. Bigner. I wish she was still alive. That is my one teacher where I was like, wow, you were actually very nice to me. And I probably had a full-on crush on her.
Right.
Like when I look back to like 12-year-old me and being like how much I loved Mrs. Bigner, like, oh wow, this was my high femme. She was the music teacher. Crush. And the Spanish teacher.
Was she queer?
No.
Okay. Just cool.
Just like nice and cool and sweet and like.
And also it's like, I feel like I would imagine most teachers would go in this wanting kids to have a great experience.
Yeah. And was just like recognizing that I didn't quite fit in. And was nice to me because of that, I think. That like, I didn't not fit in, but I didn't fit in. Like I was kind of always the one who was like, I can fit into any group, fit in everywhere, but nowhere all at once. Does that make sense? Or like I didn't have like and I think part of that was that I did move from Buffalo to Louisiana. I did go back and forth, and like kind of my whole life has been kind of dipping my toe into different cultures and like trying to like figure it out. But
well, I feel like for me, it's like I was very much that as well, and I feel like it was very much a self-preservation tactic. It was like I recognized that people weren't going to like me, or like people were. I understand there were going to be those bullies,
right?
And the best way to mitigate that was to have everyone else like me.
That makes sense.
So growing up, it was like always like I wanted to charm everyone and make everyone laugh like you did. And that was how I pretty much survived. Like high school, like when I went to high school, I wasn't out, but I was presumed gay, like you had mentioned earlier.
Right, yeah.
And in my high school, in a very rural area of Connecticut, it was difficult. Anyone who was out gay or presumed to be gay, kind of besides me, had to transfer because you'd be bullied relentlessly. But what I did notice about those kids is like they were quiet kids who had their small group of friends. And for me, it's like I was bullied too, but I was friends with everyone else. So if I were to be bullied, everyone else would be like, oh no.
Yeah.
Like, go fuck yourself.
Yeah.
And it's kind of the only reason I feel like I was kind of the only out gay or presumed gay person in my school to be able to graduate from that school.
Does that school have an LGBTQ alliance of any sort now?
I think it did. Yeah. It did at the time. It was very small.
Is the school still there?
Yeah, and I was. It's so funny. I was actually working at a restaurant a few summers ago here in Provincetown, and it just came up. Oh, where are you from? Because that's what you ask people. Oh, I'm from Connecticut. They're like, oh, what part? They're like, oh, I'm from Woodstock, Connecticut. I'm like, oh, I went to Woodstock Academy, and they're like, oh, wow. Like, what was that like being a gay kid going to Woodstock Academy?
Being this gay.
Yeah, and I was like, oh, it was horrible. It was awful. And
Yeah.
the person laughed at me. They like didn't believe me, and they're like, oh, that's crazy. There's a gay headmaster there now.
Oh, wow.
Which blows my mind, considering what it was. Very much small town, good old boys. Like the guys bullying me never got in trouble because the headmaster was friends with their dads, and their
right.
dads
And they
were
played
their
football, I'm assuming?
electricians. No, we didn't have a football team in my school.
Oh, lacrosse?
Yeah, it was soccer. Yeah, we were soccer.
Oh, that
Yeah.
says so much. That says more than anything else about
Yeah.
the school.
It
Quite
was very.
frankly.
It was a very like preppy.
Gay. Sounds
Yeah.
pretty gay.
Yeah, lots.
I mean,
of,
everyone knows soccer and lacrosse is gay.
I think it was of the time as well, but it was also like all the girls had like side parts and pearl necklaces and
Right.
Abercrombie jean skirts. And,
Yeah, that was my school too. Like
Yeah.
for senior photos, did you have to have like I'd have a black and I
oh,
had to have pearl necklaces.
Oh,
And
we
they're
didn't
all
do
the
that.
same.
No,
Yeah,
we didn't
they're
do
all
that.
the same.
yeah. I feel like there was never a moment. What's weird for me is I feel like there was never a moment where, or a moment I can remember. I'm sure there was a moment where I was like, I realized I was gay when it came to a sexualityness. And it's probably because I always knew I was different in a way. And there must have been a moment where I was like, oh, gay, that's what it is.
Do you remember the first time you had gay intimacy, like physical touch? Like, who was your first gay kiss? Like, do you remember?
Yeah, I was 21. Of course I remember.
Oh, you were 21. Okay.
So this
I
is
was 17.
basically, obviously there was a point where I realized I was gay in a way that was different. And even though my parents were amazing, the plan was up until I was probably like 20. I was like, I'm going to be closeted forever. I'm going to dupe some girl, you know?
So it was in your awareness.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
But basically, like all through my teens, like, and into like probably until I was like 20, like the plan was to be closeted forever, have kids with some woman. And the crazy thing is I remember having this like panic of like, I didn't know what life could be like for a gay person.
Right.
And in my brain, I was like, what am I going to like have to like abandon my family and my everything I know to move to some island where only gay people live? The crazy part is that's exactly what I did. Not that I abandoned my family, but like living in Provincetown. Now I'm like, no, I want to live where there's only gay people.
Yeah.
But yeah, through, and it was like, and I was, not that I want to say I was never closeted. I was closeted in ideology, not in practice, which is like, I was not gay, but I was gay, but hiding it. But I wasn't hooking up with boys. I wasn't kissing boys and keeping it a secret.
Right.
Like the first person I ever came out to was my first boyfriend. And I came out to him by him going, oh, would you want to go on a date? Like before I could be like, oh, I'm straight. He asked me on a date and I was like, yes. And like, that was how I came out.
Wow.
Yeah. That was the first person I ever allowed to know that I was gay.
It was so me and person in high school. And then like we had a best friend that we like were like, we kept it a secret. And then finally we like told a person and then one other person. And then it became like this little circle of just like little kind of one friend who at the time had a boyfriend and was like not gay, who is now a big dyke. Right. Like there were definitely people in my life. And then I got made fun of, I'll always say that like going from junior to senior year in my softball, I was dating a girl from another team. And like the team was kind of like, like my team was like, what's this? Right. And like 3 of them are gay now. Right.
All my friends are queer now.
Are they?
They weren't then.
Yeah.
But like I had like a group of like 10 or so people in high school that we were all like the friend group.
Yeah.
Even the ones that are straight, like they're kind of queer.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
That is not the case for me. I have some who are very much still very straight and very Southern and very doing their thing. And I love them too. I had a really interesting experience when I was in high school at putt-putt golf and game. And there were a lot of people talking about me, about whether or not I was a lesbian or not. And my boss called me into my office.
If you're a Yankee, a Northerner, that's mini golf.
It's mini golf. I thought putt-putt was, is that not a Northern thing?
I did not hear the word putt-putt until until my first boyfriend took me down to Florida, and they're like, we should go to putt-putt. I was like, the hell is that?
Yeah, mini golf, putt-putt golfing games. I worked there, and there were rumors that I might be a homosexual. And I had started working there when I was 14, and this is when I'm like 16 or 17. And the guy that owned it was Baptist and very religious, and brought me into his office, and he was like, listen, I've heard lots of rumors. I just want you to know, like, don't worry about it.
Work.
And it's none of my business, but also you're great and we love you and don't worry about it. And so there are many ways in my life where I was very fortunate to have people. And I think, again, this informs I think that actually does inform my relationship with religious people, because this was somebody who I did see live a very, a life full of piety, right? Like someone who was like really into religion in the way that they wanted to grow themselves as a person and step up to the Lord's challenge to love people that were different than them.
Amazing.
No, it really was. And so and that was kind of my first somebody who was outside of my family, and this is my work life. And it's just like, don't answer. We don't care. It doesn't matter. We just want you to know that it doesn't matter. And then I moved to Natchitoches, Louisiana. Well, first I came to Buffalo and went up to Buffalo, and it was the first time I kind of saw people holding hands in the street. And I was like, and going to like a gay bar that didn't feel like it was dangerous.
Yeah.
Right? Like where you didn't have to crawl under the overpass to get to the old train station as you did in Louisiana. You could actually walk down the street and walk into the door on a busy highway, and that's the gay bar. Right? Like where you don't have to actually hide the entrance for people's protection. Crazy. And that is still the gay bar there. You know, I mean, there's a couple more now, but you know, it's still a thing.
Yeah.
That was the bar you went to if you didn't want anyone to see you going to the bar. On the flip side, that was the bar that people who were looking for you would drive through the parking lot and see if you were at the bar. Right? Like that kind of shit.
I mean, after I came out to that man who I ended up going on a date with.
Where's he now? Sorry. Okay.
We'll get there. The first friend I came out to was a friend of mine who I was living with at the time, who had recently like come out as a lesbian in like a soft way. In a way where I was like, but are you a lesbian? She's like, well, yeah, yes, yeah. You know, I'm like, I remember as I was on my way to that date, this is the first friend I came out to. She pulled up to our apartment as I was walking out of the apartment, and I kind of just like waved and then texted her something. And she's like, oh my God, I thought you were texting me to make fun of me for being dropped off in a Subaru. And I was like, who am I to make fun? I'm on my way to go on a date with a guy.
Amazing.
Yeah.
That's really cute.
Yeah. And then like slowly came out to my friends. And then a few months later, my mother came to visit me, and we had lunch. And I had newly moved. I had just moved to Boston. I was there for probably 4 or 5 months. And she was like, oh, so have you met anyone? Are you seeing anyone? And I was like, actually, I have. And this is the moment I like kind of knew it was going to be okay. She's like, what's their name?
Oh my God. That's really cute, actually.
Totally. Yeah.
That's really cute.
Yeah. I was sitting in Copley Square at the Globe restaurant with my mother, and I was like, well, his name is redacted.
I told my mom over lunch, but this is like when I was like 23, 24. Yeah, 24. But prior to that, you know, in high school when it was happening, my friend Ryan was 3 years younger than I was. And so I was like 18 with a girlfriend. He would come visit me during the summers. We would hang out. And so he was at his first gay bar at 15. He did not think he was a homosexual, but he did oddly really enjoy Dave Matthews in a way that was so gay. And I was like, all right. And then like 2 years later, he came out to me. And then right after that, his cousin, Amy, who's a lesbian, came out to me. And like, it just became this thing where like, the three of us all like we would just be like, let's go get lunch, and then the next person would come out, and the next person would come out.
I love that.
It was really a great thing to have at that time period in my life, for sure. To have like people who I had known since I was a child, who we grew. You know, I was in Louisiana, they were in Buffalo. I was, you know, the person who was kind of in and out, but like these were my siblings, for lack of a better term, you know, because my sister was so much older than I was, and I came out to my sister actually like. going to the hospital to see my dying great aunt and like being like, and kind of saying something and her taking it in stride and also being very honest about like, listen, I have a lot of questions because my sister had the conversation with me about how she's created a life for me in her head. Right, because my sister's 8 years older than I was, and like still is to this day 8 years older than I am.
Right.
And
that's how time works.
That's how time works. And was someone who had ideas about what my wedding would look like and all of those things. And so she was very honest about how it was going to take her a minute, but that she didn't care and would support me and knew well before my parents did, or at least I told her well before I told my parents.
Yeah. Well, the funny thing is I had come out to a few of my friends. Obviously, I was dating this guy, and my sister came to visit me, and I was with the guy at the train station because she took the commuter rail into the city to visit me. And she gets off the train. I meet her. I go, "This is my friend," and then I give them a hug. They go. Me and my sister go about our business. And a few days later, my roommate, who was also close with my sister, goes, "Just so you know, like your sister asked if that was your boyfriend."
Oh my God.
So obviously, but like my sister is like the one person on the planet where I knew 1000% she was going to be amazing about it. That night, I actually called my father because I knew my mother I asked my mother to tell my father just because I thought it would be easier. But I had some life thing happen at the same time where like, for me, it's like, I could be going through the most stressful thing. And my father is like, everything's okay. Like, immediately at all, like everything's okay. So I called him about it, and then I was like, "Did you talk to mom?" I'm like sobbing, and he's like, "Yeah." He's like, "Oh yeah." He's like, "That's fine." He's like, obviously, like, I love you no matter what. My father's he's a very emotional person, but also a very like stoic person at the same time.
Connecticut emotions.
Yeah, well, it's like he's a very emotional person, but also a very like strong, stoic kind of man.
Yeah.
So it's not often that he's outwardly emotional, but he's emotional. And he was like, well, he's like, the first thing I did when the doctor put you and your brother and sister in my arms was tell you that I'd love you no matter what, and I would love you forever, and I just want you to be happy. He's like, obviously, it's weird thinking about you having sex, and I was like, is it not weird thinking about Aaron and Alan having sex?
Yeah, no, that should.
He's like, well, yeah, you're right, actually.
Yeah. And have you brought people home for holidays?
Definitely. And it's actually now like that first boyfriend I had, we dated for that first guy I came out with. We actually dated for 3 years, and it was a horrible, manipulative, emotionally abusive relationship.
Yeah.
Which, just like a side note, it's like with like the Diddy trial happening and everything, so many people are like, why doesn't she just leave? And it's like, if you've never been in that situation of being in an abusive relationship, like you'll never understand what it's like
100%
to not be able to just leave.
Right. And just the fight or flight of things that happen.
So that's where he is now, gone from my brain.
Have you been following the Diddy trial at all?
Yeah. It's crazy.
Sam J, comedian, do you know Sam J? Did I just saw an incredible bit. Go find Sam J. She was at the Comedy Cellar. She, I think, was at the Comedy Cellar and did this entire bit about how much work Diddy went through to not be gay.
Mm-hmm.
Like that all of this is, like you were trafficking and doing all of this because you just couldn't let a brother nut on your chest. Right. And that is really like something that needs to be unpacked more. Go find Sam J's bit about this because she slays it, like really nails it on the head, and is a really good example of what society does to people who have urges outside of what is the quote unquote norm.
Right. So like these are the dangers of homophobia.
These are the dangers of homophobia because if you're okay with another dude nutting around you, you're a little bit more on the homo spectrum than you think.
Well, like basically he would pay sex workers to nut on his girlfriend, and then he have her come to the next room and he would eat it off her.
And deliver the nut to him. No, it is insane, and it's something
I'm
that
not kink shaming.
No. Do your thing,
The
but
abuse wrapped up in all of it is the problem.
that is a direct result of homophobia.
Mhm.
Is that sort of behavior
Yeah.
where you jump through a lot of hoops and abuse a lot of people, so that way you can taste nut.
Back to bringing men home to my parents. Now it's like I can't even do it because like I'll be like a couple Christmases ago, a good friend of mine had nothing to do, so I was like, "Oh, come to my parents' house and we'll do Christmas." And they came, and for months after, my
In-house.
mother's like, "Are you dating?" Like and the thing is like I'm like, "Mom, if I was dating a man, I would bring him home and tell you that I was dating a man because like I've been single for fucking 8 years. It's getting embarrassing at this point. I would love to tell you I had a boyfriend. I would not hide that from you."
Right. I also was my house was the house where you could bring all your like anytime someone and I love that about my house.
Mhm.
Anytime someone didn't have a place to go for a holiday, they could certainly come to our house. That is very much the Italian way of being.
Yeah.
You know, there was always a plate. There was always, space for somebody who needed. If you couldn't make it home to see your family at Christmas, my mom would make sure there was a present under the tree for you.
Cute.
It would be random, and we wouldn't know anything. They wouldn't know much about you, but there'd be a candle, it'd be some lotion,
Yeah.
Bath and Body Works, whatever.
Work.
But that was always how we lived, and
Mhm.
there were definitely Christmases where I was just bringing home friends from college, and they were like, and I'm like, no, it's like not
Yeah.
that. It's not that at all.
This is actually my roommate, not my roommate.
Exactly. Correct.
But now I'm so lucky. Like my parents are amazing. My sister my sister's married to a man, has a pride flag out on her front door in rural Connecticut, where there's more Trump flags than pride flags.
Yeah, I have a niece who is a little bit of a homo. So my sister's daughter, so that's cool.
Mhm.
And my sister is, staunch supporter, and my parents voted for Trump, so there's that.
Mm.
But love my girlfriend. Probably love her more than I do. I think I finally broke through to not love her more than I do. Oh shit, I meant love her more than they love me.
Mhm.
I broke I feel like it's this thing where my mom finally she sees Katie as like this feminine thing, and that's all my mom. My mom is just like really loves being feminine and
Yeah.
doesn't understand like neither of her daughters are particularly overtly feminine in
Mhm.
any way, right? And so I think now
But she gets to talk to KT about her hair color.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So that works out great, and
Yeah.
everyone loves her,
I love
and
that.
yeah, it's a great time.
Yeah, coming out and confronting your sexuality is always challenging, but it's worth the work.
It's worth the work, and it might not even feel like it in it,
Mm.
And I think it's important for people to know that it's not seamless, and it's not flawless, and it's not easy. But when you unpack some things and learn more about yourself and move forward in a way that feels correct, just keep taking one step,
Mhm.
right? Like just one step towards this, and then you'll get to whatever your reality
Yeah.
is.
Advice from my perspective and my lived experiences as someone who the plan to be straight forever and closeted forever changed in a moment when some very cute man asked me out. Like, I don't regret it for a second. There never was a moment where I regretted coming out. It's one of the best choices I've ever made in my life. Know what I mean?
Yeah, I feel similarly. I could have take or leave the first girlfriend, but
me,
the next one,
fucking too.
the next one,
Still working on that trauma.
mine wasn't trauma so much as finding out they turned into an asshole as a grown up.
Mm.
You run it. Because I did run into them, and it was like they were just such a condescending prick that I was just like, oh, what did I ever see in you, and why was I heartbroken about this?
Yeah.
But then my second like real relationship, I'm still friends with to this day, is still like one of my close pals, and is married with kids, and as they want to do, and is somebody who I would never trade that at all. I would never trade the formative college experience I had in Natchitoches and living at Third Floor West with everybody smoking and relationships and all of it, and I think really that dorm experience that I have had really informs kind of how I like to run SAS in a way, because that's how old I was, right? It was like in my 19-20 age, and having this this ragtag community of people who all got thrown together to live in a place and learn and be queer with each other and understand what that means and figure out who they are. And that is such a really really formative, cool thing. And so find out who you are and then find your tribe.
Yeah. I mean, one thing I will say, which has been a constant through my entire life, is there's been this conversation on TikTok or wherever lately about like a gay's gay versus a girl's gay. And for me as a child, it was like, I'll always be a girl's gay because the places where I was safe as a child was around women, was with my girlfriends. And as I aged, I always had really strong, incredible women propping me up and allowing me to be who I was through my childhood, through my high school years, and like now living in a place like Provincetown where I'm like, oh, they also come in gay?
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
It's and like I say that I have so many queer women friends, and I feel like I'm so lucky to have that in my life, and people like you and so many of the people in my life here in Provincetown. That'll always be my experience, is like being surrounded by amazing queer women who allow me to be who I am.
I was just thinking, like, I felt like I had to confess about the time I was femphobic when it came to men. I had a roommate one time who was very feminine, and my partner and I were basically, he just needed a place to go, and everything about him was very feminine, and it annoyed me. And it annoyed me because it felt put on. It didn't feel authentic. And then when I started living with this person, I got to realize that was who they were.
Right.
And it was so over the top feminine to me that like I couldn't believe that this wasn't a show.
Right.
And then I was completely fine with it.
Right.
Like once I was like, oh, you wake up like this? You know what I mean? It's like, oh,
they wake up like this and then they shave and they're like, hey.
Yeah. No, like for real. No, it really was this. It was a life altering perspective shift for me to share in a more intimate space with someone like that and learn, oh, you aren't just doing that at the bar and at work and at happy hour. Like this is actually, oh, my bad. Love you.
Totally.
You know what I mean? Like, oh, great, cool. That's fine. Like I can handle that.
Let's also acknowledge that anyone can be annoying.
100%. I think I try to be sometimes.
Most often.
I do it on purpose.
Yeah. Thank you so much for listening to Queer Times and listening to me and Kristen's stories. We're just two stories in the millions and millions of queer experiences around the world.
But as they start to try to take away these stories, we want to make sure that we're continually putting them out there because it only takes one story to help someone feel less alone.
Yeah.
Right? Like it just takes one lived experience shared to the right person to be like, oh, and also to let them know, hey, we've been through this. We're still here. You're going to still be here. Everything's going to be okay.
And also to change people's perspectives who are on the other side of it. Hopefully, maybe someone will listen to this and be a little nicer to that annoying 6-year-old boy who is very effeminate. You know?
Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks for listening.
Love you.
Love you queerly.
Kristen.